Straw Hut Media.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Hey kids, it's time for Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. And I am, of course, Jake Hogan, a guy who's a comedy writer and sometimes a director and a failed comic and a philosophy student at UCLA and a teacher at USC. Oh, I'm a dichotomy of education. It's very hard. This is a show called Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan where I talk about things that are on my mind with smart, funny, and interesting people. And today will be no exception because I have a smart, funny, interesting guy here named Rob Edwards, who I'll be talking about in just a moment. But I want to first say that if you have any questions or comments for me, please write in to dbawjaykogen@gmail.com. And I will answer your questions. And we do a listener mail segment. I want your listener mail so we can ask a question of me and my guests, and we'll be on the show. And you'll have all your friends who watch the show with you. Do you have any friends? Does anybody watch your show? I don't know the answer to any of those questions, but if there are people who watch the show, they'll be impressed that you have your question on the show. I'm new to podcasting, so this is great. Although, very excited that our show just won a great award, the Golden Distraction Award, which is the highest honor any podcast could possibly get. So I'm very excited about that. Here's the subject we're going to talk about today that's really, it's been on my mind. It's always on my mind in some way, shape, or form, is as a professional comedy writer, producer, creator, I don't work alone necessarily. I'm not a guy who goes in a room and just writes something and delivers it and then hopes to sell it. I've done that sometimes, but usually I'm told, hey, there's a comedian you should work with, or there's a producer you should hook up with, or a director you should hook up with, or you meet somebody who says, I have an idea, will you work with me on this? And everything sounds like it's potentially good, and everything sounds like it's potentially bad. But this is my life. Any project I'm going to do is going to take months and months, if not years of my life. And how do you know when someone, not the idea, but the person is worthwhile? How do you know they're not a time suck? How do you know that they're reliable? How do you know that they're funny? How do you know they won't screw you? How do you know that they're that they'll be a good partner, that they'll be helpful, that they'll be loyal, all that kind of stuff? Because when you're entering into a creative partnership, all those things come into play. And that's why I brought my good friend here, Rob Edwards. Rob, welcome.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
You have chosen to be alone with Jake Hogan.
Yes, exactly.
It's a little scary.
We're alone together.
I know. Rob is a writer, screenwriter, director. He has done many things.
Also a teacher.
Yes, at
exactly.
USC.
At USC.
That's
there
true. You've worked on everything from In Living Color to The Fresh Prince to The Naked Truth.
Mm-hmm.
Princess and the Frog is something that you get a lot of love for.
Absolutely.
It was a breakthrough movie for Disney.
Yes.
But it's also just a classic now at this point.
Yes, exactly. Right.
So
it's going to be a ride at Disneyland.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
What fun is that?
Congratulations,
Yes.
Treasure Planet. And you've done many, many things, but you also have just entered into the world of graphic novels.
Yes.
You just created a graphic novel called Defiant.
Yes, called Defiant.
Okay.
The history of Robert Smalls.
Very good.
Born a slave, was basically conscripted to work on this ship, just to ferry munitions from point A to point B.
Right.
There are 3 white crew members, 9 black crew members. The 3 white crew members would go off to shore every night to just kind of party.
Right.
And he just grabbed the other crew members and said, hey, one of these nights, why don't we just steal this thing and go surrender it to the Union Army?
Oh, wow.
Which they did.
Okay.
And
that's great.
Loaded with munitions.
Mm-hmm.
They coated the deck with gunpowder because they knew that if they were caught, it was not going to be good.
Right.
And they would just
light it on fire,
send the whole thing up. Yeah.
Dive overboard. Hopefully.
Meet all the families. All the families gathered, with them. They went through 5 checkpoints, 5, secret code checkpoints, surrendered themselves to the Union Army. It was the biggest haul for the Union Army ever. And you became an instant war hero.
Wow. Okay. So that's amazing. So they went through southern checkpoints and northern checkpoints to get through
well, that was the thing.
Yeah.
He went through all the southern checkpoints, including Fort Sumter, which is a major. And then when they had gotten past the last one,
Right.
no one had thought, oh no, what do we do once we get to the Union Army?
Right.
There's going to be this Confederate ship laden with,
Right, exactly.
with
Gonna fire on us. Right.
going to, they're
Right.
going to, whatever. But thank the holy goodness that his wife decided to make a white flag.
Okay.
And so she was like, oh, you might need this.
Right.
And they flew the white flag, surrendered the ship, and then that was that.
That's interesting. 'Cause my wife Brown sends me to work with the white flag every day.
Yes, exactly.
Because she knows I'm going to need it too.
Absolutely.
I've surrendered more times than you could possibly imagine. So that's good.
Hey, we have that in common.
Yes. Rob and I know each other for many, many years. I think it's 1985.
In 1985, yes.
Okay, we
Absolutely.
have a mutual love of a friend of ours named Sam Simon, who sort of brought us together.
Yep.
And we starting out exactly the same time, kind of doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Parallel living all the way through.
Right. And
Yes.
and I'm a huge fan of your family and your boys and your wife.
Yes,
And
likewise.
and so this is we're not afraid to be alone together because
Yeah, right,
we're
exactly.
very good friends, and I love Robin. Thank you for being here.
Oh, no,
and the
thanks for
reason the topic I chose, of course, is like, how do you know who's a time suck? How do you know who's unreliable? How do you know that the reputation of a comic is really worthwhile, that they have value?
Absolutely.
Added value to your project as you move forward.
Yes.
I say this because I always considered you somebody who's got your finger on the pulse of show business.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you're
yeah.
an analytical guy.
Yes.
You see the
very
world
much
in an analytical way,
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes in a way that I don't see it. And you sort of like go, that's the company to be part of. That's the person to know. That's the thing that's happening now that they're buying.
Yes.
So you seem like the guy.
Well, good. Exactly. Exactly. That's it. Because I think that, well, there's two big relationships that you have in life, right? Your parents are your parents, your parents, whatever. All that is kind of decided way on. But you get married, right? And when you get married, you think about it like that sometimes you're introduced by somebody, sometimes you go out on you kind of meet them, you talk a little bit like, hey, why don't we go out, whatever. You date for a million years, whatever, then things, progress. And then you say like, hey, let's go and let's do this full time. In entertainment, it's
you're
like
forced to say that.
Well,
so your wife,
forced.
the girlfriend, forces you. It's not like a choice.
Yes, exactly.
I was forced.
Once the babies start coming,
exactly. No, I mean,
do
like this is happening.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Forced.
Yeah, right.
So we have that in common. But the in entertainment, you walk into a room or your agent calls you and says, hey, guy read your script and he likes you, or whatever.
Right.
And then you have maybe a half an hour to meet a guy, assess them really quickly,
right,
and then decide if you're going to spend, in animation, like 4 years together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long road.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like you're developing things. I have projects that are like 10 years old, where you've just been with these people. And very quickly, I know there were several situations for every win, there was a couple of losses where I was just like completely wrong. I just completely misjudged the resume, the vibe in the room, all of that stuff can change on a dime.
Yeah.
Sometimes the person that's interviewing you is not the person you're going to be working with.
Right.
Sometimes they are very good at the more insane they are, sometimes the better they are at masking that.
Right. Some people are just good at the meeting and bad at the
really
work.
great on the first date.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly.
right.
And then you get there. There was a situation you probably know of, where like it was a great show. The guy had a rep as a really good writer. First day at work, the guy says, who else here is on antidepressants? Whatever. Right. And that was the way we started the season. And it went downhill from there, where it was like he was firing people and he was shacked up with the star. All kinds of everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. And it was a hellish environment.
Right.
And he had hired a lot of really good writers. Everybody else had kind of, gotten into the same problem that I did.
Right.
And there was just no way to know that it was going to go that bad. The only red flag I had was that he was hiring me.
Right. Right.
Is that he needed people.
Right.
And I thought like, well, geez, the guy's been
have
around.
Your own people?
Yeah, he's been around forever. Can't he just pick up the phone and staff?
Right.
And that was a big enough red flag that I should have called it.
Okay.
I didn't, because I think part of it is that you're selling yourself.
Right.
You know, you don't want to go back to your agent and say, "Oh, I didn't
was a
get
bad
it,"
meeting.
whatever.
No.
It was a bad meeting.
Once you take the meeting, you want them to love you and say yes and be, of course.
Yes, you're just on sales mode.
Right.
You're not on pretty girl mode.
Right.
You're not on like
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I didn't like the way he said this
Judging.
about the thing.
Yeah.
Whatever. You're not.
My meeting, you're talking about Chris, right? Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah, you
Yes,
know, so Chris
absolutely.
Thompson. Okay.
Yes,
So,
talking about Chris
so-
Thompson.
so
and,
my-
you know, and-
my
and
meeting with
he
Chris
left
Thompson,
his wife and kids
he
to go
did.
shack up with
to the
Taylor.
star. Yes.
So, horrific. And during the course of the season, went back on everything that he was
right.
addicted to,
Right.
you know, before he sold the show. So, and that behavior just kind of spiraled and spiraled and spiraled.
Can I just tell you?
Still a good show. I mean, it was weirdly, it was a good show. He was a great writer.
Right.
I learned a lot.
He's
from
a great
him.
writer.
But
Was a great writer.
man alive, it was just every day.
Hellish
was hell.
day.
Yeah.
My meeting with Chris Thompson at one point was he invited me to his trailer wherever he was working. I forgot the studio, and I walk into the studio and
CBS Radford.
maybe it was Radford. I may have been Universal or something. I don't know. Wow. And there was a gun. He had a gun out on the table. A gun. Okay.
Like he's, oh my God.
It's not the only meeting I've been to where somebody pulled a gun and put it on the table.
Like he's a rap.
There was
rap
another,
producer.
one of the Epps brothers.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm telling you, one of the Epps brothers put a gun on the table.
Nice.
But he put a gun on the table. He's wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. And then we're having a meeting, he's talking and he's looking, and I don't really feel like I'm getting any traction, but it's fine. I'm still talking. And at some point, he gets up and goes to take a shower.
Oh, wow.
During the meeting, in the shower.
And you're supposed to wait
nearby.
for him to finish.
Well, he's still kind of talking.
Toweling off. Oh, okay.
He's still kind of talking. So I'm shouting while he's taking a shower. And I was like, does he want me to join him in the shower? Like, well, I don't know what's going on exactly. It felt a little harassy.
Oh,
it felt a little strange.
Yes.
I mean, but between the gun and I'm going to get naked and take a shower.
Yeah, exactly.
I was a little bit strange. That was one moment when I knew I wasn't questioning, should I be in business with that guy?
Right.
It felt very much like I should not be in business with that guy.
Exactly. Red flag.
And he didn't want to be in business with me. And that hurt still. Even though I knew, even though I knew I didn't want to work with him, he didn't say he's the guy.
At least pick me.
Yeah,
so I can turn you down. I break up with you. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure that
I didn't get that. What I got was he was super charming.
Yeah.
He said, why have you been working on all these shows? And I said, well, look, it's tough being a black writer in Hollywood. Right. And this is a white show. And it is a bigger barrier for me to, whatever. And he says, I'm going to save you.
Oh,
I'm going to save your career out.
All right.
This is going to be the show that you work on. It's going to break you out and it's going to do all kinds of stuff. Just come with me, trust me, whatever.
Right.
And I'm like, yes,
okay, take me with you.
Absolutely.
Right, exactly.
Hug me.
Right.
And, he
take me with you, crazy drug addict.
Didn't disrobe and get, get in the water or anything like that. It was just kind of like, yes. And people had said, oh, well, watch out because he's whatever, but he's been through these programs and he's
much better now.
And I think I even brought it up in the meeting. I said, well, look, here's the report on you.
Right.
And he says, oh, no, that's far behind me. I realized at a certain point that that was holding me back,
right?
And that for a time in my career, and he says, for a time in my career, I would write the hippest thing that wouldn't get picked up, and then that's how I made my living.
Right,
is that I had a development deal. Right. Every year I'd write a pilot, and it would be like, oh, we wish we could do it. It's just too hip for the room. And then he says, okay, and I put all that away. I want to have a show on the air, and you're the kind, you're my team. You're one of the writers. Okay, who's gonna go. And then just whatever.
Yeah,
and it was awful. I'll tell you another situation. A producer was working with a director that I love, that I've worked with for Reggie Hudlin.
Okay,
I worked with for a long time on a bunch of different stuff. Producer that he's working with calls me up and says, "Hey, Reg called. He said the script needs a rewrite. Wants you to come in and do the rewrite." I'm like, excellent, great. We're doing the deal for that. He says, "Hey, by the way, I have this other project." I'm like, yeah, great. And this was just like as quarantine had started. And I was like, oh, just looking for,
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do. He says, oh, it's an animated film and needs a rewrite. And I said, okay, great. Here's my pitch for the rewrite. And he says, wow, this is excellent. Would you like to direct it?
Right.
And I said, well, do I have to leave the house? He
Right.
said, no. I said, absolutely.
Right.
Double the money.
Right.
So, so I start directing this movie, and the other producer, his partner, also wonderful, goes chapter and verse my resume. Oh, we love this, and your episode of this was great, blah, 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 whatever. And we're hoping to bring all these things, magic that you have. Oh, this is fantastic. But those aren't the producers that I'm working with on the day-to-day.
Right.
It's this other guy.
Right.
Who has never produced animation before.
Right. Doesn't know you.
Doesn't know me.
Right.
Doesn't know what I do. Doesn't trust me.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
And
you've been assigned to him.
Yeah. And it's just, it was, it's not easy.
Right.
And that's the thing. I think a lot of, there's this
But you're good at win. You win people over. You could win that guy over.
You would hope. I mean, I did for what was it? 3 years.
Okay.
3.5 years
Right.
I worked on. First couple of
Again, I'm not saying this in a calculated way.
No,
you're
no.
a very warm, wonderful person, and you can read the room, and that's why I say that you can win somebody over. Not that you're like,
no. But strategically, I did make that decision. I was like, what does the other side of the table want from me? Because a lot of times, every writer, you go in, you go like, oh, this is stupid.
Right.
These people are dumb for getting themselves into this situation.
Right.
What kind of moron? And that's the first thought as you're reading through the script that they want you to rewrite. It's like, what are they thinking?
Right. How did this even get here?
There's something definitely wrong with these people. And then you go into the meeting like, and that can spill out.
Right.
That can, you can, your body language can be, well, in a real movie,
right?
And so you have to say like, okay, well, don't do that. Do the other thing. Be the, and Dennis Klein, a bunch of people gave me this advice, like just, think about the other table. What does the other side of the table want? And be that person.
Right.
Be more amenable. Be more like, okay, well, that's a good idea. Okay, great. Let's walk it through.
Right.
Okay, if we do that, then we're going to have to, do some big work on the third act because of this and this and this.
Right.
As opposed to saying like, you're going to fuck up the movie.
Right.
Whatever. You're just like, okay, this, and then, oh yeah, right, we'll do these things.
Right.
And usually they'll say, oh, you know what? Yeah, well, let's do the way you want it. And then you get nice points,
right?
And you get what you want.
Sure.
So that's me most of the time. But when it's like, when the budget gets cut or whatever, all those things that happen with bad projects,
right?
And those things become scapegoats because the person that hired you or the person that you're working with is not all that,
Right.
Insecurity. If in the case of comedians, most comedians are insecure.
Of course,
you got to deal with that.
Right.
And sometimes the insecurity is like, okay, great, I'm so wonderful and I can write, whatever.
Right.
And so I can suppress the insecurity. But other times it's like, no.
Right. Well,
my insecurity is beyond anything that
sure. It's a monster in a box.
Yes, exactly.
And once the monster gets loose, it's all hands on deck.
And the more you try to control me with your good words, the more monster comes out. I now have to double, triple.
So what do you do? Monster. What do you do? You've hooked up with this monster, this producer, the producer who's not your fan, and you work for 3 years on this thing, and it's like running through mud. It's really difficult to get to where you want to go because you're not getting traction and you're not getting it done. Is it at the end of the day? When do you decide like not worth my time anymore? I've just already put in so much time.
Sunk cost fallacy, right?
Yeah.
That becomes a big part of it.
Right.
It's like, oh, I've been here in this last project. It was like, I've been there for 3.5 years,
right.
And previous projects is like, you're deep in,
right.
You're like, nice. And they're like, oh, I can't, and my wife will say like, Rob, you've been talking in your sleep and punching the pillows.
Right. This may be time.
It's coming out.
Right.
It is leaking out the thing. And I think early on, I used to really take it.
Does Michelle?
It would destroy me because I would think, oh no, sunk cost fallacy.
Right.
Oh no, the last 3 years of my life.
Right.
This is what I'm going to have to show for it. Everybody's going to think I'm terrible because of this.
Right.
And then I think as you get on, as you survive more and more of those things, or maybe you have cumulatively, like now I've done enough good projects where people, if something bad happens, people aren't going to say, oh, he sucks. People are going to say,
it fell apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One slid by the plate,
Right.
and off you go. So, but one thing that I did do back then was I would live and die on that project. I would say like, oh, it's going wrong. I can't sleep until I fix it. Every word is, I'm gonna, whatever. I am the only one, and you would have that savior thing.
Right.
And there's nothing worse than a bad savior.
No. I mean, the energy that you're putting into that is crazy. That's like ruining energy.
Yeah. Now I just write a spec.
Okay. Yeah.
Now I just go, okay, this is terminal.
Mm-hmm.
The cancer is spreading.
Yeah.
My surgical skills are beyond my ability to repair this particular thing.
Right.
They don't realize it yet. I do. I see it coming for whatever. I'm going to do the work that I need to do. I'm going to take the notes. I'm going to do whatever it is.
Right.
But no amount of Herculean effort on my part is going to save this.
That's right.
So, you know what? What would be a good version of this? Or, what would be like, I've always wondered what would happen if the so-and-so and a blah, blah, blah. Or, this actor that I really like from this project or from a previous project is really, could really use a vehicle. So I'm just going to sit down and write, on my nights, I'm going to make myself happy, which is ridiculous that we do this, but I to get away from my job, I do my job. Right.
Oh, I wish I had that kind of energy. My God. I'm going to be so miserable from the job that I'm not going to think, you know what I want to do more of?
But it's different. It's different, I think. I think it's like you get into when you're just working, when you're just drudging, and you just, oh my God, this is whatever. It becomes something else.
Right.
It's like, and I'll even tell the kids, I'm like, okay, well, this is paying the bills. This is a bill payer, and this is art. Art is over here, and art is wonderful, and it makes me happy, and drives everything. And this is,
honestly, but I don't.
You guys need to go to school.
You can't separate the bill payer because you don't provide less of you in the bill payer job.
No, you don't.
You put your heart and soul into that too. You can pretend, you can lie to yourself and say, oh, well, they're so shitty that I'm not really giving it all. But there's no way. You have to try to make it make sense to you.
Do you remember there was this great episode of Taxi where I think it was Chris Lloyd and Dan DeVito and Danny had done had done one thing too many. And why am I not remembering the characters' names anyway? But he says, you know what? That is last straw. I don't love you anymore. He says, so? He says, yeah, I'm gonna, everything else is fine. I just don't love you.
Right.
And he's like, well, so what? Whatever. And he says, good morning, boss. He says, I can't take it. Whatever.
Right.
And that was it. I think that's the thing is that you just realize, like with women, it's the ick, right? Well, you're still in the marriage, you're still kind of doing the thing, but you're just kind of like, ooh, and that's how I feel. That there's the passion. And yes, you do, as a professional, you do the work, and you still put in, sometimes it's like, oh, hey, there's a heartbeat, oh, great, let's go. You have
to hold on to something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's a story that you like, or an idea at the core of it that you like, or the idea of the world that you like. There's something about it that's still.
And that's the thing. What was it on Princess and the Frog? For a long time, there was the third act just didn't work. It did not work, and it was kind of like, oh, the movie, things are going great, and then we get into the third act, and it's like, okay, we'll figure it out, and it was getting to the point where I was like, if we end the movie like this, it's not going to be
right.
It's not going to be great,
right?
And fortunately, and you talk about like you get into the situation, I think that I found kindred spirit in the head of story on that thing, and I said, I just want to pitch you what I think the third act should be. And he says, oh my God, that's great. So I said, okay, now what?
Right.
I said, I can't draw it, but if we board it and figure out how
Right.
we can use already drawn drawings and
Right.
stuff like that.
Well, I mean,
then we can efficiently do it. And
Yeah.
we pitched it, we worked on it for a couple of
Right.
weeks, pitched it to the directors. They said, yay. And off we went. That took a lot more effort than just making the movie.
Sure.
And the movie was at that point, like we could have very easily just said, paycheck. But
Right.
but we said, no. We love this thing. This is going to be great. We can see the looks on the face of children.
People don't know that animated movies are a whole different breed of movies, because a lot of what you're writing has already been conceived by artists and
Yes.
animators.
Yeah.
And they say, like, here are these 8 sequences that are built into your, into your first act. Is what?
Oh, yeah.
This is terrible. This is yes, it's gorgeous, but it's slowing down my movie by a million
These are
years.
20 other frogs.
Yes.
Rob, these are 20 other frogs that'll be in the movie.
Right.
I'm like, there's just 2 frogs in the
Right,
movie.
there's 2 frogs. But that's the
But they're
thing.
beautiful drawings.
Right, but they have enough power. Like the artists
Yeah.
have equal power a lot of the times to the writer, or more so, because they're on high. They're on staff. You're the new guy. You're the guy who walks in, and so you have to fight with them, or not fight with them, cajole them into think that's beautiful and gorgeous. You know what would also be good, and like what you're saying
It's not that.
If
Yeah,
you could get the
exactly.
story person, what you did was finding the story person and getting artists on your side to draw it.
Yeah.
That was pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's very, very difficult.
You
to
sell
do.
the dream, whatever. But also, like I say, that sometimes you are in the room with people that share your beliefs.
Right.
Because even in this animated thing, I would call back the guy who originally got me onto the project and say, like, hey, here's
He's
Here's where I
Tahiti
am
somewhere, like on a
Yeah,
beach.
right,
Like, are you
Well,
still
he's-
doing that? I quit that months ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, Rob, we're happy that you're still, whatever,
Right.
that kind of. And I'm like, okay, well, here's what's going on. You just tell me what is going on the other side of these phone calls. And he would, he was like the Rob whisperer. He
Mhm.
would manage me,
Right.
which was good. I needed to be managed. And I told him as much. I was like, look, I need to know what's going on.
Right.
I need to know that I'm not just like, throwing pages into a void.
Right.
And that was, so that was a good
Okay, so you're enticed by this company, this thing, the idea of directing. That's kind of fun. So you're
Yes.
enticed by that for a little while, and then it sort of, can become difficult. Other enticements I've had is, here's a comic, very hot. They're so hot.
Yeah.
And networks are dying to get in business with them. You go, okay, and then I have nobody to make the due diligence call to, like the president of the network. Are you really interested in getting into business with so-and-so committee? So I just have to take my agents and other people's word for it that
Right.
this is a hot property. And then I'll work for months developing a show. And then either the comedian hates the idea that they
Right.
liked 3 months ago and now
Right.
hate it. And now they're scared because it's my career, it's my face, it's my name. It's like, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that's the bargain.
Yeah.
Your face, your name, this show. If you want to change stuff about it, let's change stuff about it, but that's the bargain.
Yeah.
So they get scared. And then when you go in finally to the agents and the networks and places, the streamers, and going to sell it, they go, yeah, this is great, but we don't like this. This comedian's not big enough for us. It's not
Right.
They don't have the viewership. They don't have the followers, whatever it is. They don't have the fan base to make it worthwhile. It's
Right.
like, I just
Right.
wasted months.
Why didn't you tell me? Yeah,
Right.
exactly. You should have told me this a long time
So
ago.
what's
the
your
other
litmus
thing-
test?
I did a thing for, I don't know if you know the group Kid and Play.
Sure.
We'll tell all stories.
Yeah.
there. But I did this, Kid and Play, we're supposed to do an HBO special.
I used to have that haircut, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Who didn't?
Yeah.
And so, so they say, they had just done, I guess a couple of movies. No, they were about to have the other movie,
Right.
about school. And they said, yeah, we're going to do a comedy special. It's Kid and Play. It's going to be really fun, whatever. We're going to fly you out to New York, going to put you in a hotel. You're going to hang out with Kid and Play for
their
a
big
week.
movie, house party or something? What
Yeah,
was it?
house party. Yeah, Reggie Hudlin.
Yeah, okay.
And so we're gonna put you in a hotel. You're gonna hang out with Kid and Play for a week, and collect all kinds of
Love
stories.
kid, hate play.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And accurate. And
Okay.
so I get there, I'm talking to them, I'm making all my notes. I pitched the HBO, what we're going to do. They're
Right.
like, oh, this is great. I start writing. And then their second movie comes out and it tanks.
Right.
And they said, hey, Rob, you know that draft you're working on? you know, you can take your time with that.
Stop now.
Yes, exactly.
Stop. You know that draft you're working on?
Pencils
Turn
up.
it in
Yeah.
as is. It's only 41 pages. That's fine.
Pencils up,
Right.
buddy. You know,
Right.
you are no
Right.
longer an employee
Right.
of HBO.
Right.
And so, yeah, and that can happen.
But that's not, you can't anticipate that. I'm talking about the thing that we should have anticipated, which is, you know, there's a comedian who's, you know, again, this just says what a whore I am. Well, it's like the comedian who, on the face of it, has no particular personality, but has great impressions, and people say he's really hot, and it's like, oh, I'll find a way to make the
See, now there's the thing, right? Now, were you a fan of this particular comedian? Because
No, not
that becomes
until
the question.
They brought me the stuff, and they go, oh, these got really good impersonations, and I had a meeting with this person, great, and then I started working on this thing. It's like, oh my god,
Yeah.
it's just pulling teeth,
Yeah.
and it's terrible, and it's like such a mistake to get involved, and I'm too much of a big coward to say I'm out.
Yeah.
And I've reconsidered.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I never do that.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time when I got the call about Fresh Prince, yeah, nobody knew who Will Smith was.
Right.
You know, he just done parents just don't understand. He did
Right.
a couple of songs.
Sure.
And but there was no key that like, oh, he's going to be whatever.
Right.
And then just whatever. And then the other thing. But at the time it was like, I'm entertained by this guy.
Right.
You know, and they'd done an 18-minute presentation
Right.
for NBC, and on old sets, on sets for one of the soap operas. And I thought, oh, okay, he's got some life to
Right.
him. He's kind of fun. He is entertaining
Right.
me. And that's, you know, like at Pixar, they would say, Andrew Stanton would say, be a film goer first and a filmmaker second.
Okay.
You know, and Sorkin would say the same thing. And Lasseter, you know, I mean, all these guys would say, make your own favorite thing,
Right.
whatever it is, you know, so kind of like use your own motor.
Right.
And so when I saw it, I thought, okay, I will watch this show. So I would like to contribute, you know, I can think of episodes that I would like to see on this show.
Right.
And so that was my meeting.
Okay.
When I met Martin Lawrence.
Right.
Martin Lawrence, I'd also seen doing stand-up at on Sunset.
Right.
You know, and I was there. There was a big gaggle or whatever. You know,
Right.
all the writers, you know, the
Right.
show writers are like, oh, okay, good. You know, take a look at this guy. And so I thought, okay, he's really funny, but I didn't think that I plugged into his humor. I didn't think that I could write for him particularly well.
Right.
And we had a conversation. It was cool. And then John Bowman wound up working on the show. I worked on the pilot, and I think I got in a fight with Martin on the pilot.
Okay. Right.
And it was about dress. It's terrible because he says like, oh yeah, I'm doing the shenane in a dress. It's really innovative.
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, like Milton Berle, or
Right.
like, you know,
Right.
or like Flip Wilson,
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
And he just kind of gave me this
Right.
look, and then it was like, get rid of him.
Don't call comedians on their stuff.
That was
Don't-
not good.
don't
That
do
was
that.
not good on me.
Backing up to Will Smith, because
Mhm.
I must talk about this.
Yes.
So Will Smith, did you know when you're working on Fresh Prince that this guy was going to be like a superstar, on world-class Tom Cruise level
You're right.
star? And secondly, did you know he would be so crazy as
Yeah.
to demolish himself
Right.
on worldwide television? Like,
Well, and that was the thing, because I also, you know, I do a lot of stuff with Chris Rock, so I know both of them.
Right.
I know both sides of the hand.
Right.
And the thing about Will, first I saw, okay, well, this guy, Alfonso Ribeiro said it best. He says he will, because he was comparing Will Smith to LL Cool J.
right,
He says Will will put on the dress once again,
Right.
the dress. But you know, being that if it means getting the laugh,
Mhm.
Will do whatever it takes to get the laugh.
right.
He's going to skid across the floor in his
Right.
underwear. You know that he will
Right.
go there.
Right.
And at the time, he didn't know anybody, so
Right.
you know, my wife Michelle and I would go to his house, and we'd
Okay.
spend most weekends
Yeah.
with him.
Mhm.
And we would go to like the fights, or he would, you know, have the fight, you know, whatever, Mike Tyson,
Yep.
and he would stand in front of the TV as the fight was going
Right.
on. And I was like, okay, this guy needs attention.
Right.
He is just,
Right.
he must
Right.
have all the attention in the
Right.
world. We can ride this guy
Right.
for forever
Right.
because he's not going to back away
Right.
from celebrity.
Right.
And so that was a big part of his
That
career.
seemed like he
the
was
other thing
the
is a
shake
whole
of hand.
other
He-
thing.
Like he can go, he'll do what it takes, but he also like glad handed everybody.
Everybody.
And he was adorable.
Uncle
and he
Will.
would make sure that people left feeling good after meeting him and all that kind
Every
of stuff.
interview,
Right.
everything. You couldn't have thought of if that's what's amazing about it. I mean, because people have smacked him.
Right.
You know, if you watch World Star, like everybody, there are people getting fights.
Right.
But he was the one guy that you thought would never,
Right.
and then the one guy you thought would never get hit. You
Yeah.
know, because Chris
Right.
Rock talks all the time.
Right.
Chris is he's a
Chris Rock is funny because that's how he learned never to get hit.
exactly.
That's the reason he's funny. Yeah.
Yes. And that's what you're watching and
Right.
play in that moment was that Chris had Chris when he was a kid. He was bullied and then he goes to school with a backpack full of bricks the next day. Whack, whatever. Almost kills this guy.
Mhm.
And said, okay, I will never
Right.
do that again. I
Right.
am completely nonviolent.
Right.
I will find a way to be aggressive without being whatever, blah,
Right.
blah, 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 you know, the whole thing. And the joke was as tame as a tame joke.
Oh
could
my
be.
God. Yeah.
You know, you look so good with a bald head that, you know.
It seemed like he had a fuse attached to him and the
Yes.
fuse was bound to
Yes.
go off.
And the fuse had nothing to do with that joke, nothing to
Mhm.
do with Chris
Right.
at that moment. But Chris was a good target.
Right.
They knew each other. They've known each other forever.
Right.
And Chris is not going to hit you back.
Right.
You know, what better, target,
Right.
you know, than a guy that you absolutely know
Right.
has spent his life saying, I will never hit another man.
Right.
You know, and so it's a sucker punch from
Of
that.
course.
And you've got this guy who is, you know, I wouldn't say bottled up, but I would say like so well practiced, you know, in order to be a black celebrity at his level. No one has ever been, you know.
You don't have to tell me.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
My whole black celebrity thing is pretty famous.
You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say.
Exactly.
But yeah, you know, so Denzel, I mean, all these guys have come along, but nobody at that level.
Right.
And what he did was he went all around the world, you know, on
Yeah.
times when he didn't even have a movie and he just did talk shows and whatever. Look, I'm okay.
Right.
And then all of a sudden his movies play overseas and everything like that. And he was
Right.
exactly that, you know,
Right.
like this is who I need to be. Like what I was saying, like, you know, be who you need to be,
Right.
you know, what the other side of the table
Sure.
wants you to be. So he's a corporate entity. He's as polished as polish can be. And then just like on a night like that,
Right.
where I'm sure the pressures of like, if he didn't win, it was going to be so embarrassing. And he had basically, you know, King Richard was kind of
Right.
like that part was just supposed
Right.
to be it. But,
I mean,
but
I maybe more than that. I don't know.
I know that there was a lot. Obviously, there was a lot going on.
Right.
And
But if you're that guy, if you're that shake the hand guy for 30 years, it's gonna
Yes.
crack at some point.
you do wonder. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I do think, and if it is, I don't know. I mean, because I do think that there was a genuineness to it that I thought he was a sweet guy who kind of wound up in rap.
Right.
You know, that he would go, Jazzy Jeff would tell this story about like, you know, Jazzy would do these parties and all this stuff. And then this nerd would come in.
Right.
He says he was always dressed wrong.
Right.
You know, he was just
Right.
this kid from, you know, this obviously like upper middle class kid, you know, talked about, you know, his mom's new Porsche. Right. So that's who he is. And Jazzy Jeff is doing these house
Right.
parties. And he says, oh, Jesus. Okay, whatever. It's like 2:00 in the morning. Everybody's basically gone home. Here, have some mic time.
Right.
And he goes and he does the thing and he's a party starter and he does really well. He says, okay, kid, come back next week.
Right.
And that's how he became. It's not, you know, it's Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, right? Jazzy Jeff was the star. Fresh Prince was just the guy who talked.
Yeah.
And so he becomes this thing. He becomes this rapper. So he becomes famous for doing something that he's uncomfortable with to begin
Right.
with. He's not a rapper. He's a showman.
Right.
And then he winds up in the sitcom and all that kind of stuff and everything. But he's still got this rap past.
Right.
And everybody's like, oh, you're not hard like us, whatever. You don't swear and
Right.
blah, 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 blah. He's getting that every day, all the time.
Right.
He creates this life for himself. He's, whatever, living, doing his whole thing. And everything in the world is gnawing at him. And he could very easily, at any point, I'm sure, just have gone like, I'm taking everybody out,
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
He would kind of half do it,
Right.
in his raps where he would talk about like, I'll drop my wallet on
Right.
you, whatever.
Right.
But it's tough being the nice guy when nobody else is nice.
But I mean, ultimately, if I saw that guy, the guy standing in front of the TV,
Yeah.
who's like that's who I want to be in business with. Ultimately, that's who I
Yes.
want to be in business with.
Right.
I don't, try and picking that out from a sea of
Right.
people who are coming to you. Not everybody's coming to you
Right.
to say, let's be in business. But of those who are coming to you, some are worthwhile and some are not. And some
See,
you
that's the
love
thing.
and some you just love. And
that's the key.
Yeah.
Do you feel the power to say no
Yeah.
in any of these situations?
I do. I do.
Okay, good,
I
good.
now absolutely do.
Yeah, because there have been so many of these guys, especially with comics, you're like, he's funny, he's not that funny. He's not
Right.
3 years funny.
Yeah.
He's not
Yeah.
3 years of my life.
No,
funny.
I feel the
And
power.
he's
to say
not,
no.
and having seen like what, now notorious, but what John Bowman went through with Martin Lawrence,
Right.
is that like, midnight calls and all that kind of stuff and just like calling him out in front of the
Right.
audience. He would just yell at him for
Yeah.
20 minutes, and stuff. And I thought like, okay, well, life is too short for that.
Right.
John
John was okay with it.
John was okay.
like,
John's
John's
John-
like, as long as the barrels of money showed up at his doorstep, he was like, yell away.
John is amazing. John
Yeah.
is amazing that way because
Yeah.
I think that he's just always had that kind of low blood pressure.
Right.
Like I'm above it. I don't really.
He
it's
always had the golf course, the retirement
Yes.
and the golf course in mind.
Oh hell yeah! Yeah.
So that was that was the destination. The destination wasn't, I'm going to do this my whole life and work hard. Like that's my destination. There's no point at which I'm interested in stopping.
See, me too. Yeah,
So, and
exactly. Me
I
too,
think
me too.
he had an end point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for discussing this. We haven't really solved my problem.
Well,
So-
wait. Well,
No.
let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. Because I think that it is. I think that it's. We approach it as a guy.
Yeah.
We're selling ourselves to the other person.
Right.
We don't approach it as a woman, which
Right.
is like you have to earn your way to me.
Mhm.
And I think that that's unfortunately it's not the industry that we work
Right.
in because writers are a dime a dozen. But I do think that it has to kind of change, at least individually, that if a lot of times what I will think is, would, Neil Simon do a show for this guy?
Right.
If I want to be Neil Simon,
Right.
whatever,
Right.
would Neil Simon do this? And probably not. Neil would look for somebody else,
Hard to know.
Well, hard to know because
Yeah.
exactly.
He,
He did have some.
Yeah, he had some flops
He
too. So
had
I don't
some
know.
flops in there. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Neil Simon found the humanity, at least in his characters, and found actors to bring out that humanity.
Yeah.
Or somebody did. I'm not sure exactly who,
Absolutely.
but the people he worked with to
Right.
make it happen. I mean, I don't know. Walter Matthau, Jack Lemmon, Art Carney, whoever,
Yeah.
his people. He had good people.
Yeah.
He had good people. So I don't know.
And maybe that's it too. Is it like we need to be more proactive and go and find, like here's a comic.
I guess so. I want to sell. That's so much work, though. You got to sell that guy. Once you find that guy,
Yeah.
you got to sell them to the buyers, and that's a whole other set of work.
That's what graphic novels are for. That's what I'm doing, man. I'm like, the model has to change where we have to kind of create the IP.
Where is
and-
Defiant available? If I want to buy Defiant?
It is a Kickstarter now.
I'm not buying Defiant, by the way.
Yeah, right.
I'm not
Exactly.
buying.
No, don't.
I'm not buying. It's a
You'll
Kickstarter.
get,
Okay.
the one will be on your
All right.
doorstep.
Okay.
But it's Legion M is the company that I'm working with.
I know
Yeah,
Legion.
those guys are
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
And it's this guy Ray Anthony Height is doing the artwork for it. This guy Nicholas Draper Ivey is doing covers,
Right.
and probably some other fantastic
Right.
artists are doing some covers and stuff like that. It will be around. It is a Kickstarter now.
Okay.
It is being done now.
All right.
I've seen a bunch of the drawings that are just fantastic.
Great.
I think like next February, in time for Black History Month next
Right.
year, they will
That's
be
such a
out.
huge gift giving time. Black History Month.
Yes.
I remember
It's like
I showed
Christmas.
up, all the presidents showed up at my house. That's so great.
Yes, Black
Yeah.
History Clause.
I will actually buy the book, and I'm going to do a little Kickstarter because I'm a fan of yours. So that's very exciting
Okay.
for me. And I'm, I'm not going to say it's a lot, but it's good, whatever I can do.
15
You're
bucks,
only
man.
asking people for what they can do. So.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there are tiers. I won't be in the first tier. I'll the second
Right,
tier.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
Now it's question time.
It's question time.
Oh, yes.
So this is question time. So I have had a computer generate an AI, our enemy, the AI, generate a bunch of questions in many different subjects.
Wow.
All you have to do is give me a letter between the A, B, C, D, E, F, or G,
Wow.
and a number between 1 and 18, and we'll find out the first question. And these questions are designed to find out more about you or spur some conversation. So let's see.
G12.
G12. Oh, that's a terrible one.
Yeah, exactly. The worst.
That's the worst one. G12 is, this is a very good one.
Did your mother love you?
What is art? What is the
what is
purpose?
art?
What is the purpose of art and beauty in our lives?
Ooh.
Thank you, computer.
Oh my goodness.
That's a good one. Yeah, the computer
is coming after us.
The computer doesn't know what art is, of course.
Man, that
but
is
do
a
we?
great one.
Yeah.
Well, because I think it's like, I guess you have to say, because it is different everywhere. It's like, what is art to me? Or what do I look for in art?
What do you look? What do you
I
look
for? Inspiration.
Okay.
I look for thought.
Yes.
I do look for. There is this thing that I teach. That is called heart, head, and hand. Have you ever heard this?
No.
Heart is the emotion that you bring to it. Head is the craftsmanship, and hand is the idea.
Right.
So you look for all three of those. So if it's music or art or painting or whatever it is, if you see all three, then you go like, oh, that is great art. And so those things I do look for in art. I look for a perspective that I've never had before. I look for some kind of I want to get out of my own head when I see art. I think that's kind of what it is. It's supposed to be out
It's
there.
something. It's an aesthetic. It's something that's an aesthetic, and it's visceral, but it's also a thought, like you're saying.
Yes.
To me, without the communication, without the idea that this person's trying to tell me something, this artist is trying to tell me something, then it's nothing.
Yeah, no.
But if it's then it's just a painting on a wall or a movie or something that I've seen, but it's not art. Art is when it communicates an idea and is like, I got it. Either I got it or I got something else. I got a different idea, but it definitely generated an idea. Mm-hmm. Successful art to me as an artist is when I communicate an idea to somebody and they get it.
Yes,
so I'm thrilled when they get it. When they don't get it, I'm a little disappointed, but still, they got something. That's pretty good too.
Yes.
When they get nothing, that sucks.
Great art for me is stuff that moves me. Is that like, I think like, oh my God, they see me, or there's something I relate to the artist in some big way. And it could be like, one of the Dutch masters. It could be, long ago. And I'll just think like,
Right.
Wow.
But I mean, but then that goes to the question of purpose.
Yes.
So the purpose is to be moved. And the purpose is to be moved in another aesthetic than your own life. Yes. And then get in touch with that thing and maybe bring that thing to your actual life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Inspire, that even if it's like it's a dance or it's a song from somewhere or whatever. Yeah.
It's
those
very
things
hard to
can
move me with a
sometimes
dance. Very hard.
Yeah, well,
I love dance, but like my wife made me watch ballet. Yeah. And it's like ballet. And it was something beautiful. Yeah. A woman was standing on pointed on some guy's shoulder. Very high up. It looked very difficult. I was not moved.
Yeah, right.
But I was interested. But that's
once again, I mean, you get to like the artists, that was obviously a dancer, probably better than the group around. Yeah. And that you have to, even as a dancer, find a choreographer that is very good and and a company that is very good, whatever. Yeah. Or else it's just going to get lost. Because
all of it matters.
What's her name? Copeland, but this amazing ballet dancer. Right. And you see her, whether she's dancing by herself or with a bunch of people, he's like, wow. Yeah. I don't know what's going on, but I know that I'm moved by it.
Can be. I mean, it depends on the thing. Like
sad movements and whatever.
Yeah.
And like, she's jumping around. Oh,
I'm not moved by ballet yet. Maybe I'll figure it out. My wife Brown loves ballet. I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I mean, much more. John Wick moves me much more.
Yeah.
than ballet,
Yeah.
so.
See, that was the thing.
So another letter and question and number.
Let's see. H3.
H3. E, G. Oh, it only goes up to G.
Oh, okay.
So no, there is no H3.
I was going with the hurricane. Let's see. C4.
C4. C4 is, what's your communication style like, and how do you express your thoughts and feelings? Do you have a style?
I do. I think I do. I think after all this time, I must.
Yes.
I think it was. I was talking to John Landis, and he says, "Well, what kind of stuff do you write?" I said, "Well, if two black people pick up a gun and say something funny, I want to be the guy that writes it."
Okay.
So I like the idea of, I like action, I like fantasy, I like wise guy stuff. The idea of entertaining, which is why I like I've done a couple of things with Marvel, a lot of animation and stuff like that. What I like is that the possibility of it all,
Right.
and to take to ground the idea of a frog, of two frogs, meeting in the bayou.
Right.
Like, you can't just play them as frogs. You have to kind of like live in their bodies and kind of like make them super real. I like.
But making animated frog real has a limit. Like,
Yes.
I mean, you're making them believable, not real, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. So we have to believe.
Although I'll tell you, when I hadn't told Michelle anything about the movie at all. We go to the premiere,
Right.
and she's sitting next to me, and she's like elbowing me all the way
Right.
through, because there were dialogue, like word for
From
word,
Yeah.
dates that we had had.
Conversations, yeah.
And things that she had called me, and
Right.
things whatever, and blah blah blah, and she burst into tears
Yeah.
at the end. She's like, "Oh, this is beautiful."
That's
and
great.
And I said, "Okay, great." Well, that was it for me. Was, can I relate to both Naveen and Tiana, and can I write as real a sequence as I can, and then add the elements of them being frogs in the body?
Right.
So that's what I like. If anything's going to be written on my, artistic tombstone, I want it to be like, oh yeah, he did funny action fantasy that was hip and relatable.
Too long.
Yes,
exactly. The tombstone is way too long.
Just like, okay.
You got to get like, he was funny, then
Funny-
end of
funny
story.
writer.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Writer husband.
All right, now it's time for our viewer mail, our listener mail.
Yeah.
Now it's time for listener mail.
Dear Jay, okay, so I am full-time caregiver for my mother. She's bedridden and 24/7 care. I live online. I can't go anywhere or do anything unless I find a sitter for my mom. So I rarely leave the house. How do I interact with folks online without looking like I'm a stalker?
Ooh.
Says, thanks, Margaret. Well,
Wow.
that is tough.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
I mean,
Without looking like a stalker.
Without
See, that's
looking
the
like a
thing,
stalker.
is that you want to make friends.
and you have limited time. Like, you have a limited window to do anything anyway.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's really tough.
That is incredibly tough.
Yeah.
I would think that you would try to. I mentor a bunch of kids, from like Syracuse
Right.
and from my high school, Cranbrook, and a lot of times I find like the kids are just kind of, they're super timid, whatever. There's a reason why they need mentoring, and a lot of times what I'm telling them is like, don't ask,
Yeah.
like wait, just be who you are, be exceptional. In some way, just present that as yourself. If you're not exceptional, become exceptional.
That's easy to say and hard to do.
Yes. Well,
Become exceptional.
but that's a big part of it. It's like, well, how can you?
Margaret's at home taking care of her
I know.
loved one. She has no
That's
time
amazing.
to become
But
exceptional.
that's amazing. To
I
me.
guess so.
I would imagine that there are probably for her several people in the same exact boat.
But you don't want to hang out with those people. If you're hanging out, you want some break from this. You don't want more people.
One or two of them might be. You don't want to just sit there and talk about that all the time. But I would imagine
club of people who spend 24/7 taking care of their parents.
But you figure that they're caring, right?
Yeah,
that they're caring. They're probably interested. They're obviously bored out of their gourds, and they have limited amount of time.
Right.
So whatever. So I would think that would be first a great place to start. Like, hey, forum, just want to see what do you do with blah blah blah, and how do you solve this problem, blah blah blah. And I'm sure that sometimes there are groups like that. There are groups for like every.
Of course.
The great thing about the internet, right? Is it like, there are 3 people who have.
Porn is the great thing about the internet.
Yes, exactly.
After that, another thing is meeting other people.
Yeah,
sure.
But you can find like the 6 Finger Club, or whatever.
Exactly.
Like,
but going back to porn. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
But there were little groups of people like that. I guess that would be it. But I always think if she's worried about feeling like a stalker, that would be a good place to start, because it means that she might have, she might have stalker vibe,
Right. Or the other way,
but it's a good thing to be aware of.
Demure, like she's. Often, if you think, I don't want to be a stalker, it means you're too shy. It means you're holding yourself back.
You're holding yourself back. Yes.
So
exactly. you're taking out a whole mid-range of behavior between stalker and
I say push harder than you think you have to.
Yeah, probably.
And then find a way in to friends and obviously if you have a reservoir of people that you know from your life that you can call and be part of your club there. But to meet new people, a common interest is the main thing.
Well, see, I think that's the key, right? Sometimes when you're caring for somebody else, you lose who you are, and you just become, like you were saying, like, all you can talk about is, we both have infirm people who we're taking care of, and what is it that you're not doing while you're doing that?
Right.
Do you like model rocketry?
Right.
Do you like music? Do you like, wine? Do you like, anything under the sun? And can you be that for that amount of time?
Right. For that amount of time is the question.
But just get out of whatever it is, get away from the thing that you're doing, be that person. And then, close the door, get back into it. And then at least you can kind of have something going on in your mind.
You need a break. You need a break. You need rest. Burnout in that kind of situation, very easy to happen. I know personally from, my parents and just taking care of people in my life, you can lose yourself completely in that job. So I give Margaret my entire respect and love, but I also think that Margaret's got to find breaks. Margaret's got to find somebody who's going to relieve her sometimes, and Margaret's got to sort of find Herself.
Yeah, Margaret's got to find Margaret.
Yeah, exactly.
Margaret's got to figure out who Margaret is, because the good and bad of it is, a similar situation. At a certain point, you're not just a caregiver anymore, and you have to find yourself.
Right.
You have to figure out. You've got years lost, but you're not done.
Right.
And what happens afterwards, and kind of dream of a world after that moment. Yeah. Wow.
All right.
Great question.
Yeah. Thank you, Margaret. All right. Now this is the last section of our little show before we say goodbye, which is we bring the joy.
A moment of joy.
You're going to tell me something that brings you joy, that you recommend, either a thing, a person, a place, a sunset, anything. Yes. What brings you joy?
Well, there are these things called puppies. And they're like dogs.
And they're delicious.
They are delicious. So good. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
Well, that was my second. I was like, there is, I'll give you a quickie and then a good.
Okay.
There's this restaurant called Alta Adams. It's a soul food restaurant. Of course, on Adams. And it is amazing.
Okay.
Just ate there on Saturday.
What's the greatest things that they have?
Everything. Oxtail fried rice.
Right.
Amazing. They do fry a chicken better than anybody I've seen.
All right.
They the shrimp and grits is amazing. And for whatever reason, they have an incredible wine list.
Do they do a pairing, a wine pairing with shrimp and grits?
Well, they do.
Okay.
They do. The guy will bring out, I think it was a Riesling.
Right.
An off-dry Riesling. So that was fun. So here's my actual thing.
Right.
Was on that trajectory was that for the longest time, I think even when I was a kid, my mom would have like these wines and stuff like that. And she was like, doctor's wife. So she just really wanted to like get her thing together. So she would always like, when I'm 10 years old, she would like, okay, hey, try this, try this, try this. So I always had like a kind of a base knowledge of wine. And I always kind of like considered myself a bit of a wino. Mm-hmm. And then somebody said, dude, you got to take
an enophile.
An enophile, yes. And wino. And so this friend of mine said, hey, you should go take the WSET class in wine. And it was at the Sofitel, which is not far from here. 1 day class.
Right.
There was a 2-day class or a 3-day class that's a little bit more advanced, but it was amazing.
Right.
It's like one of these things I always say, like wine is trying to tell you something about itself.
Right.
And a lot of times I'm just sitting there going like, oh, it's good.
Right.
This is good and this is not as good, but I couldn't tell like why or anything like that. And just kind of demystifying wine.
Yeah, for sure.
It was all you do.
That's
you just
great.
sit there and you taste wine. I think we tasted like something like 30 wines or something like that.
That's great.
For the day.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, you blind tasting everything. So it's like, okay, well, can you find the this and this? Can you whatever? But okay, which is this?
Right.
Which is which is the Riesling and which is the Chardonnay? And like, okay, well, I think it's this.
Right.
Good job.
Good job.
And then you come out of there and you go, I can sit down and look at any wine list in town and basically, not go,
right.
Don't
have to feel
whatever.
We took one of those courses in
brings joy.
Paris.
Oh.
Brown, Charlie, and myself all went to Paris a few months ago. And for some reason, Brown said, I want to take the wine tasting thing. So we went to the wine tasting thing. We didn't have 30 wines. We had 7. Okay. But it was great. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
From different regions of France. It was fabulous.
And it's a little thing, because you're always sitting there at dinner and you go like, I don't have, and you point to the wine list and you say, hey, could you please, help me? And just demystifying that.
For sure.
It's like nothing else. Like if I know, like, okay, I want grilled chicken or whatever, I know what that is. And if I want orange juice or pineapple juice, I know what that is. But if wine, I just sit there and stare at until now.
Yeah, but you know how I've been to wine parties at your house and stuff like that. You guys know wine.
Yes.
And Michelle knows wine.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah,
she knows what she likes and she knows what she doesn't like.
Right.
And now I know, okay, great. I will just put a bottle in front of her and say, like, oh, trust me.
You're going to like this.
You're going to like this. I know your palate.
Right.
And I know this. We would never have ever bought this before, but here.
That's amazing.
So WSET.
You know how many times I've done something for
And they
Brown?
give you a little pin.
A badge. Oh, nice.
A little pin so you can wear it.
How many times I've done something for Brown and said, trust me, you'll like this? Yes. Never. I know. No. She's very mercurial.
Well,
I don't know.
You take your life in your hands.
Exactly. I have no idea. Yes. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being alone with Jake Hogan.
Yes.
It's great that you were such a great and interesting person. And I'm proud to call you my friend.
Yes.
So that's fabulous that we can spend this time together. Been trying to have dinner or something, but at least we could do this.
I'll pick the wine.
I appreciate that. So thanks, Rob Edwards, for being here. And I want to say thanks to the audience for tuning in. This has been another episode of Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. Remember, the email address here is dbawjaykogen@gmail.com. And hopefully we'll see you again next time. And thanks for being alone with Jake Hogan.